Apologies once again for the lack of an episode last week. I'm still recovering and operating at a bit of a reduced capacity, but I'm confident I'll be able to keep delivering your weekly tank restoration fixes from now on. This week we're finishing up Steve's work on this absolute beast of a vehicle, the Soviet artillery tractor. Hi, I'm Kurt from AusArmour and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. After completing his engine bay contortionist work, Steve can move on to the leaky fuel system, specifically the hand priming pump.
Initially I thought this thing was going to be a bit easier to work on because of the space and the fact that it's not really a full tank chassis as in it's armoured or whatever, but no, everything still is quite tricky, I think. Ideally the system should work so that if the vehicle has been left without being run for a long period of time, fuel can siphon back into the tank. So what the driver does is reefs on that handle a few times to force fuel back up into the injection pump. But in this case it's doing a good job of pump fuel out of the tank onto the bottom of the engine compartment. Trips per minute are definitely out of spec. I need arms about 5 foot long. It's going to be a bit of a dilemma on how to get the thing out.
It was a literal stretch, but Steve was able to reach down with the angle grinder and just managed to cut the hose clamps off and remove the unit. Unsurprisingly, it was in pretty rough shape.
We've got actual mechanical damage of the pre-filter element. Look at all the chunky bits coming out. Yeah. We've got the second line of filters, which is on top of the engine inside the V. With a bit of luck, that's sort of stopped the majority of this rubbish from getting through into the fuel system. I'm pretty interested to see what's actually in the main filters. I wonder what we'll get to see. Already there's a large amount of rust on the nuts, so that's never a good sign. Nice, huh? This should be nice and tight, but the filter stack itself is all squishy, so either the retaining nuts come loose or the material's starting to degrade. Either way we need to fix that. So that fuel comes in this side, comes out this one. Oh yeah, pretty awesome. Just to give you an idea how much water has made it past the pre-filter. Yep, there we go. I actually think this thing might have a algal infestation in the fuel tank. Oh yeah, look at that. If we're talking about the most contaminated fuel system that I've seen so far in my career, this one would have to be pretty close to it. Both filter elements, filter bodies are full of gunk. Feast your eyes on this yummy looking stuff here. This is what I dug out of the fuel filters over the bat and left it over the weekend for the solvent to evaporate, and it's left behind this, I don't know what it looks like, some sort of vegan food supplement I reckon. So I've gone and replaced the hand priming pump with an electric pump, which we will now check. The twin fuel filters that I've just cleaned and put back together and serviced them are completely empty. So this is going to be a flow test and also a proof of concept that the little pump can lift the fuel up. Time to test. Oh! It's a gusher! These little pumps really are brilliant. They're rated at about 140 litres an hour at at 0 psi. If you put a bit of load on them at sort of 5 psi, they'll still pump probably 80 to 85 litres of fuel per hour, which is more than enough for this application. But yeah, quite impressive because the fuel has come from the bottom of the tank. It's been pushed up through the pre-filter and it's filled up the main filter, injector pump, and that's fuel that's coming out of the return line from the injector pump. So that's working really well. This pipe here connects to this very Soviet industrial looking button here. That's actually an air bleed system, so that when you're hand pumping the thing, you're supposed to have your hand on the air bleed at the same time, which then allows to take air out of the fuel filter system and goes back to the tank. That's good. We'll be able to do a static test now. I'm happy about that. Still a few more jobs left to do, including probably the job that tank crewmen love to hate the most, and that's adjusting track tension. And I've got Silvio here helping me out with this because he enjoys being gloved up and hitting things with hammers. With the bat, it uses a track system similar to the T-54, T-55 and other Soviet stuff, which uses what's called a slack track system, so there's no return rollers. The unscientific method for adjusting the track tension is to tighten the tracks until you've got a sort of a constant radius of the track. You can really see how the track is drooping between the road wheels, so it means that the track's loose. Probably the worst thing that can happen with a loose track is obviously the thing comes off, but the track will tend to bunch up together when you're trying to do tight turns, and it can actually jam while that's happening, so it puts an enormous amount of stress on the drivetrain and all the track pins. So even though it's a real pain in the neck, track tensioning is an essential bit of maintenance. So this is an exploded diagram of the track tensioning idler unit with two adjusting screws. One screw is for actually adjusting the eccentric for the track tensioner, and the other screw is what actually splits apart the teeth between the eccentric on the track adjuster and the hull so that you can actually turn it. Also at the same time, Bo did a fantastic job on cutting freehand this out and then welding it to an old socket, so that now I've got a special tool that we didn't have before. Alright, so that's tightening the track. I don't want to go too far on doing the track tension because an over-tight track is almost as bad as one that's too loose, because if the track is too tight, it's obviously going to cause more friction and more drag and labour the engine, and it's going to accelerate wear on components on the vehicle. So after about 1 million turns, the idler pulley, the teeth is back fully engaged in the hub, so it's now in the lock position so it can't move. And just as a comparison, you can see how the track has got a nice shape to the top of it in comparison to this side that's all saggy and droopy. And the less we say about that, the better. So I've got the bat out of the workshop in preparation for testing, and I just can't miss another opportunity to marvel at the sheer presence of this thing. What I've been spending last part of the afternoon doing is actually working on the steering system, and I'm sure you're all desperate to understand how the steering system works, because I've just had to spend 6 hours working out myself how it works. The steering tillers, which are inside, are just simply that. They're just a pair of dumb levers that the driver sort of pokes and prods. All that movement is translated into a series of mechanical actions here at the steering hub assembly. It's basically 3 positions for the steering. First one being the rest position, where the tank goes straight ahead. Second position is what we would call a wide radius turn. There's an epicyclic gear inside this unit here. The steering brake is declutched, and also the primary steering brake assembly is on. Should you need to turn harder, the driver pulls back on the steering tiller further, which then starts to engage the main steering brake, which is about double the size of the primary steering brake, and that's what gives you your really short radius. The normal sort of thing that people jump to is that tighter is better. Adjusters, especially nice big fat adjusters like this, they tend to get tension down, and what it can do is that it can throw all the timing out, because when the driver moves the tiller, there's a series of cams and ramps and other things in there, which is what actually times the action of the various brake bands and also the declutching mechanism. So if you tighten one thing up excessively and the lever doesn't stroke properly, then the brakes don't work properly, and this is the issue I was having with this, that it was being unpredictable at low speed. Control wise in the VAT, it's pretty standard type Soviet mid-50s fare with a few nice sort of ergonomic features, like a sun visor that slowly creeps down, that's got an incredibly sharp edge on it that's perfectly positioned to give you a good scalping should you have to stop in a hurry. 5-speed transmission with an external exposed gate, so eat your heart out Enzo Ferrari. Standard instrument cluster and gauges, not much to say here, so I think it's time to test and have a bit of fun. Done probably about 12 laps of our parade ground outside, so I think it'll be interesting to see how much fuel this thing's used. Specially calibrated measuring stick. Each increment's 20 litres, and I had it at this mark before, so that means we've done about 12 laps and it's consumed around 15 to 17 litres of fuel, so not too shabby in the grand scheme of things. I've got to say, what a tremendous amount of fun it was driving this thing around. Once you get some speed up, it's beautifully responsive to the steering controls, easy to manoeuvre. You know, loads of people talk a lot about engine torque and all of this sort of stuff, but you know what, I really don't think they know what they're talking about until they've had a chance to experience a 38 litre V12 diesel in a, you know, relatively light body shape like this, and with the crazy cab configuration. It's made all the hard work worthwhile, and I'll probably tell by the smile on my face that I look forward to driving this thing again, and also look forward to seeing people enjoying it as well at AusArmour.
That's all we have time for today. We'll be back with an update on one of our regular restoration projects next week for your weekly tank restoration fix. So until then, I'm Kurt from AusArmour, and I'll see you on the next one.